Hello everyone, Don with Resolute Outdoors here. So if you followed the channel for any amount of time, uh, a little while ago I posted a video titled The Blue Collar Scholar Concept. And in that video I mentioned that I wanted to do a little bit more content on the educate aspect that I talked about in that video. If you haven't watched the video, I'll put a link probably up here or so for it. But I encourage you to go watch that video. It's a pretty short video and it kind of lays the groundwork of what I'm talking about here. But but in kind of an effort to show you the things that I'm doing, try to educate myself and try to make myself um, better meet that topic, is I'm going to start a new series on the channel called Resolute Reads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the books that I'm reading, the most recent book that I've read, and kind of go over it, just do a brief, review. Nothing in depth, but more of my just general thoughts. Kind of give you ideas on maybe what you can look into reading and what you can look into reading, and then things that I'm interested in, and learn a little bit more about me through what I read, and then a little bit more about ways you can take your academic pursuits. So the book that I read, I'm going to do them in order that I've read, so I have a couple to catch up on here since I decided to do this series. But the first one I read uh, in this, a lot of this is Sibling Horror by Matt and Emma Fradd. It is a short story collection of horror stories. Now, if you're not familiar, there is a podcast, Sibling Horror, that kind of goes through most of these stories are in podcast form. If you want to listen to the podcast, you can. But I prefer to read. I think it's better for your mind, and it kind of makes you uh, do a little bit more imagining, I think. But if you're not familiar as well, Matt Fradd is known from the Pints of the Aquinas podcast, so he's more famous for that than for this. But I really like this book. There was, I think, 14 short stories in here. I think they alternated who was the author in them. But it's really interesting. They really have a unified style, even though it is two different authors. So it's really hard to distinguish which author, if it was Matt or Emma, who read the book or who wrote the story. But as far as horror, these really kind of hit the mark. They really leave a deeply unsettling type of feeling where almost nothing is ever resolved. You always have more questions than you get answers. And you start at the beginning kind of having a really interesting picture painted for you in a lot of these stories, and then a really unsatisfying conclusion in like an eerie type of sense. And when I say unsatisfying, I don't mean that they're bad stories. I mean, you're really vividly in there and living these short stories, but you don't get like that nice bow at the end. And I think that really adds to the unsettling factor that when you think about what you read, knowing that there's not really a solution to it or not really a resolution to it, it makes it even more unsettling in the future, or more unsettling when you think about it more and more. So these are really nice. I do like going through short stories because you can sit down and read a short story in a day or two. It's not hard to read, a 10, 15, 20 page story in one sitting or in multiple times throughout the day if you don't have time to read all at one time. So, I'd recommend picking this up. As far as reread value, I would say moderate. Even though you're going to know how things end, the way pictures are painted in these stories, you really do feel like you're there. Some of the things that, the inner monologue that goes on with characters or the descriptions they have about things are really things that are, I'd say, super humanizing, where you think, like, this is kind of an obscure thought you wouldn't normally think is written down, but something that a lot of people think of, that you think of all the time, or reasonably enough that it doesn't sound bizarre coming from a character. So as far as reread, it's moderate because you do know the end of the story, but since there's not really a lot of resolution anyways, it's really more about, the lack of a better term, the vibes of the story almost, or the feeling that it gives you, that it entices in you. So rereading them, kind of getting that picture painted for you vividly, is really something that's worth rereading again in a lot of ways. So that's kind of my just mini review on Sibling Horror. Um, I guess I give it 4 out of 5 stars, if not 5 out of 5. Um, I don't know how many of these I'm actually going to give numbers on. I'd probably say 5 out of 5. I did enjoy that, so I did enjoy it, and I read this very quickly. It was easy to go through. It's not a huge book, but it's reasonable size. Now, two, if you're reading something different, or reading maybe a nonfiction, you can layer maybe a short story in, one short story, then go back and read a couple chapters of the fiction that or the nonfiction you're reading, just to kind of loosen things up a little bit and make it more of a balance between fiction and nonfiction if you're into reading both of those. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is Don with Resolute Outdoors. Until next time, I'll see you.